All right, lords and lades, we are September monthly support call. I think this is what, area number 8? Probably.
Something like that.
I'm going to stop counting because I feel like I've either said the wrong one or I'm going to lose track. So we'll just call this September monthly support call. Both Ari and I are outside enjoying this beautiful weather. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this cool front. Hopefully ultimate shift to fall weather. No more scorching hot summertime. Ari, did you know today was National Coffee Day?
I did not, but I celebrated.
Yes, and I'm currently celebrating as well. National Coffee Day. If you guys haven't had your cup of coffee yet, just make sure that you wait until the morning to have one because it likely will ruin your sleep. But with the liquid topic in mind, we figured that today we've been having some conversations amongst our team, but also a lot with our members on water and hydration specifically. As you guys know, we are a lifestyle-based fitness. We take a lifestyle-based fitness approach, and we are a lifestyle-based fitness facility. So we don't just look at exercise as the end-all be-all, but a big habit that we talk about incorporating, not just initially and one that's easy, but one that we consistently push and are broken records on, is water intake and hydration. And what we want to do, dig a little bit deeper into that topic and maybe talk a little bit more on some practicality around water. Like, what should we be looking for? Looking at water on a spectrum of good, better, best, understanding that water isn't not all water is created equal. And then also some very practical and applicable behaviors that you guys can add in after listening to this immediately to start bringing more awareness around your hydration to make sure that you guys are effectively hydrating in general. So I'll pass it off to Arian like I always do. Arian, what do we need to know about water?
Yeah, I like the concept of not all water is created equal. I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge at this point that, like, when you look at quality of really anything, like there's a range that you get that you accept. And so when you think about going to the grocery store, kind of an aside, but I saw, like, if there's a healthy section of the grocery store, then what do you call the rest of the store? But if you think about, like, you could look at qualities of ground beef, right? There's 80-20, there's like a big chuck roast that you can't see inside of, and then there's, like, grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef. And even though all three of them technically fall in the same category, you can kind of identify both by cost, by look, by taste, by nutrient profile. Like, there's a big difference between all of them. I think one of the things that we kind of forget is that, like, the water that we get a lot of times is the water that we get from our tap is not necessarily the highest quality, or it might not be as quality as we think it is. And so it's just a kind of good reminder that as you kind of go down this pathway, like, once a year, I think everybody, depending on where you are, I just moved into a new neighborhood, so we're connected to a well, and I'm going through the process of trying to identify what we are. But you'll get a water report that shows parts per million, the amount of heavy minerals and heavy toxins and all of the components that are in your water. And most of us don't really think about it. Maybe the filtration system that we use is connected to the refrigerator built in that we don't ever remember to change, and you don't look at it. But a lot of times, like, yeah, the concept of good, better, best, like, yeah, hydration is important, but, like, I think that there is a market improvement when you look at getting quality water, getting quality ingredients, getting something that is actually, like, more beneficial for you, as opposed to just kind of reaching back and not really paying attention. We spent a good bit of time kind of looking for solutions for the gym. I mean, we again have it's on a septic system, but it's the municipality. But, like, the water quality was pretty awful, and so we sought out a company to help put in a reverse osmosis unit. I believe, Asia, we got a remineralizer for the gym, didn't we?
Yes, we actually, and we'll dig into that a little bit deeper, but we have RO, reverse osmosis, plus we have a remineralizer as well. And we'll dig into that a little bit more here as we get along the combo.
Yeah, but we spent a good amount of time kind of digging into what could we do to especially with as many people coming through, that we have to maximize one, enjoyment, but also just, like, doing what we could to make sure that it was of the highest quality possible. And so we found a local company that services and provides, and they've been phenomenal. It's Lone Star. I don't know if you guys have ever paid attention to the water filtration, but I've gotten multiple compliments on the taste and the quality of the water. And I think that goes back to, like, if you have really good ingredients, like, it does make the flavor, like the enjoyment, like different, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, there's some really good points there. And I think coming back to the concept of not all water is created equal, let's make a pretty factual statement here. All municipal and well water systems are pretty trash, guys. So if you're reliant on your sink's tap to get your main source of water, I'd strongly suggest that you guys deter from that and that you get some level of filter, even if it's something as simple as like a Brita water filter, where you're pouring your tap water into the Brita and it is filtering that and sitting in the fridge so that you can drink filtered water. Or maybe you guys have, I mean, I think every refrigerator nowadays has a water tap system to where there's some filter that you can put in there. And even though that isn't necessarily like the best option, that's going to be damn near better than just drinking water from the tap. So we have to understand that municipal water and well water is just loaded with toxins and chemicals and, you know, excessive amount of minerals that we don't want to be putting into our body. Because when you think about where that water comes from, anything can exist in there, anything can sit in there, anything can soak and then absorb into the water. Plus you have marine life and all these other things. So they have to put a massive level of chemicals to kill all of this stuff to make it like, you know, this cleansed state. So you're seeing things in there, you know, worse than chlorine, but you're getting all of these additives, fluoride, whatnot in your water. So we've got to move away from drinking tap water if we can. And I don't think that we're asking too much, or it's not asking too much financially expense to shift to something like a Brita water filter, or even just use the water filter within your refrigerator. But got to make sure that we're moving away from that. And another thing to think about too is, you know, how much water should I be drinking? And is just drinking enough water from the tap going to be better than not drinking it at all? And I would say yes and no. Actually, I would wholeheartedly say yes. If you're drinking zero water at all versus just hydrating with maybe poor water, good. Like that's step one. That would be good, where it's like, let's bring more awareness to drinking water in general. And let's make sure that we're striving for something. I think we believe that every individual should shoot for half their body weight in fluid ounces, bare minimum. It doesn't matter the time of the season. It doesn't matter your sweat weight or whatnot. That's like the foundation, half your body weight in fluid ounces. I think there is a lot of information out there about you need to drink a gallon of water. It's like, we're not going to prescribe a gallon of water to someone like Arian, who might be, you know, over 225 pounds, or one of our females who's 115 pounds. It's like, we shouldn't just have this general prescription of everybody should drink a gallon of water, the same way that we don't prescribe a templated nutritional approach or whatnot as well. So we've got to make sure, and I apologize for the grass cutting in the background, guys, but we've got to make sure that we are striving for something that's a little bit more personalized to us. And usually if you take your body weight, you divide it by 2, that should give you your prescription of fluid ounces that you should be taking in. And I think this whole, hey, everybody needs to drink a gallon of water has come about the whole behavior of drinking more water, because we're chronically dehydrated. I think as a community, we're just chronically dehydrated because at the end of the day, we prefer to drink sugar sweetened beverages or other beverages instead of water, because water is, quote, boring. But as we know, boring works. And so how do you fix chronic dehydration? Well, you just drink a bunch of drink gallons of water. And that's not necessarily the case. So half your body weight in fluid ounces is what we're looking for. Drinking water versus not drinking water is going to be better wholeheartedly. But also, I think what needs to be equal with that is not just, all right, well, I'm just going to drink water, whatever water I have access to. The same way that you guys wouldn't go into like the water hole behind your house and just start drinking that liquid. It's like, okay, when we look at the things that we have the most consistent and average exposure to, air, water, food, movement, like we've got to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to raise the bar on the quality of things that we're doing. And so water being one of them, like, let's see if we can get a cheap, if we don't want to invest many expenses into it, hey, let's get the cheapest filter that we can that's going to take this water and it's going to remove, the chemicals that I can smell or taste, which is going to be better than just drinking tap water. and let's do that. And if we want to take that up a step or two, we can start looking at something like RO that we had mentioned, which is reverse osmosis, or even taking that up another level and seeing how can we actually like structure our water, or how can we remineralize our water. We can kind of dig a little bit into that as far as, okay, well, good would be, let's shoot for half our body weight in fluid ounces so that we're bringing more awareness around drinking more often, because our bodies are 75% water. Without water, we're going to actually experience a lot of things. And a lot of the things that you guys, sorry for the tangent, but a lot of the things that you guys probably chalk up to other things in your life could likely just be dehydration. And when you think about it, it's often that we're not wrapping our heads around the behavior of drinking more water. We'll talk about some things that you can add into your repertoire to bring more awareness around that. But then also making sure that you guys get some level, base level filter, whether it's a Brita filter, whether it's a Berkey filter, whether it's a, you know, a refrigerator filter, to just start filtering out some of the nastiness in that water. We've got to start there. That would be almost like base level. And so then the next tier up from that might be something like reverse osmosis. And Aaron, can we talk a little bit about what reverse osmosis means, maybe pros and cons to that, and then we can level that up and start talking a little bit more about what's the best quality water we can put in our bodies.
Yeah, that's great. I think another way to maybe drive that last point home is, Asia, would you drink toilet water?
No.
Well, so technically, the way that a house is plumbed, the water that's in your toilet is the same that's going to your sink. Like there's no difference between toilet water, bath water, outdoor spigot water. Like it's all the same water. And a lot of times, because we view where it comes from in a different light, you know, again, if you think about like a toilet bowl, nobody would drink out of a toilet bowl, but like realistically, the water is the same. You have one inflow and every single spigot in your house spits that out. And so kind of that, you know, gross visualization of drinking toilet water is a good way to think about like, yeah, you probably want to put something on, you know, to at least clean up that water. Now, in terms of the way that an RO works, I'm not 100% positive. I know it always comes back down to the way that it's extracting certain elements. So like, for instance, the things that I've looked into, because I've outside of the gym, I've not played much with an RO. I know an RO typically lives under the sink. A lot of times you have a big like vessel that essentially has to go through a drip process, so it creates a pool of filtered water. It's pulling out, you know, some of the heavier toxins. A lot of times it's pulling out even some of the base minerals that we actually need to be able to kind of excel and live to flourish. And so that's where like having something like a remineralizer, because all of that water is being stripped of all of the elements, toxins, impurities, so on and so forth, to be able to be put into that RO tub. It needs to have some of those, because again, you're looking for, you know, some base level of good minerals as well to come back in. Asia, if you can speak more directly to the actual science of the RO, I'd love to turn it back to you.
Yeah. So, you know, RO stands for reverse osmosis. It's just like the 1,000-foot overview. It's pretty much a 3-filter system that takes, I think one of the filters is like a carbon filter that takes out a lot of the, you know, like the hardness of the water. Then there's a membrane that takes a lot of the chemicals or bacteria out. But pretty much there's a tank, and all that water goes through this 3-filter system. It ends up in the tank, and then when you actually go to deposit the water out into your cup or your cooking bowl or whatever it might be, it comes from that tank. So it's complete. It's like the most cleansed, homeostatic, like pure water possible. Like Arian was saying, it's completely stripped of any sort of benefit or detriment. So like you have almost like a completely neutral water, which at times can be good, but also at times, in our opinion, may not necessarily be the best case. And so, you know, there are great things about water. When you go to the store, you see, hey, there's pH water here, there's water with added electrolytes. At the end of the day, it's like we do want to keep some of these minerals in our water, because we call these trace minerals. These trace minerals don't only provide us a phenomenal mineral profile that lead to a lot of processes within our body, health, the way that we feel, look, feel, function, but they also help us retain those fluids. And if we're not actually retaining fluids, like we're just passing those fluids out, or we're not allowing the body and the tissues to absorb the water, and actually utilize the water that we're taking in. So that is another detriment of just drinking flat water too, is like if we don't have the appropriate minerals in there, like we're not necessarily absorbing it the ideal way that we could. And that's why we sell Element at the gym. That's why we talk about trace minerals. That's why we talk about, hey, if you have a completely reverse osmosis cleansed water, we're going to want to add some salt in there or something of that sort. And so I think Arian dropped off. No worries. What I want to show you guys is I'm going to screen share some options on, okay, well, let's say that I do reverse osmosis my water, which in my opinion and Arian's opinion would be now better, right? Good would be cool. Let's just get a cheap filter. Let's utilize the filter that we have that came with our fridge, and let's purify this water to where we're taking out the things that we can smell or taste, right? But then there's this deeper level of filtration that we need to take out bacteria and stuff that we can't see or smell. Now we level up and we go to better water intake, which is reverse osmosis. But in our belief, reverse osmosis, a completely neutral, stripped water from any minerals at all, may not necessarily be the best option for us. So, well, what if we could take something like trace mineral drops, and you could get this? This is a really fantastic brand off of Amazon, or maybe even you can get a really good quality ancient fine sea salt, like real salt, which comes from like salt rocks, and it's not like iodized salt that has the minerals and trace minerals stripped from it. What if I could take a little bit of this salt and I could just put a little bit of it to where I can't really taste it, but just enough to where I'm actually replenishing some sodium and some potassium and some magnesium and stuff into my water, to where I'm now leveling up my reverse osmosis to something that's a lot more absorbable, but it's also a lot more like nutrient dense that I'm taking my water. These are just two example options. Another option that I like is, oh, that's not it. Can't find it. But it's a product called Soleil. And so it's pretty much like Himalayan salt crystals, and you surround it in water, and it basically makes salt water, so you can actually add that water specifically to your water, that salt water to your water. But then it also comes with, grinded up salt like this. But at the end of the day, like a quality salt can go a long way as far as replenishing things like sodium, potassium, magnesium. When you think about it, the mineral that we are the most deficient in, and the one that is the most necessary, is sodium. And there's a lot of what I would like to call bastardization around salt and salt intake. And a lot of that's based on bogus research and animal research and stuff like this, to where we need to be putting minerals back into our water so that we're not just retaining this water, but we're making this water more nutrient dense as well. So in summary, reverse osmosis basically completely neutralizes the water. It takes everything. It's like a nukes the water. It makes it like completely homeostatic. But then that's often like reverse osmosis water without minerals is often not as beneficial as we think it is. So replacing it with some trace minerals or some Redmond sea salt or some sort of salt that you guys have that isn't just like an iodized table salt, because that's stripped from its minerals, can be really, really beneficial. And it's really great bang for your buck, because these trace mineral drops or Redmond sea salt can go a really, really long way. When you look at something like Element has a good level of sodium in it. That's why it's so salty, depending on what you guys put it in. But it also has potassium and magnesium. And I stand corrected, but I was saying that potassium and magnesium is coming in a lot of that salt. It doesn't. So the Element packet kind of levels it up by basically putting more minerals back into your water. But when you think about those minerals, they're also electrolytes as well. It helps retain water, and it helps distribute the water where your body might need it. So that's why it's super, super important when we talk about retention over hydration. Retaining water is a lot more important than hydrating. I think we've all been there, where we just like down all of this water, and it's like every 10 minutes you run to the bathroom, peeing out clear water. It's like, oh, we're not doing a really good job retaining this water, and oftentimes we're just kind of flushing it through us.
Hey, good stuff. Sorry, I dropped off kind of in the middle. I got a phone call and I couldn't hear anything. So yeah, no, that's great stuff. I was going to ask about Element and your thoughts on kind of using it in place of that. I've always kind of looked at it more from the electrolyte profile, for like more of an active, but like considering the amount of it always goes back to kind of like, whenever we start pulling some ideas for these calls and everything else that we look into, when we really start thinking about like longevity pieces, like, I mean, the two places that I've seen myself kind of consistently have people start paying a little bit more attention to is like hydration and protein content. And I feel like those two elements like kind of work themselves out, because regardless of how many calories and all these other things, like it takes, like nobody accidentally overeats protein, just like nobody accidentally overhydrates. It's always on the other side. I didn't eat enough, I didn't drink enough. And if we can kind of get those two factors kind of moving in the right direction, like a lot of things tend to work themselves out naturally. I feel like satiety, I feel like cognitive improvement. I know that we've had a few people who have talked about headaches or just kind of perpetual headaches. Again, there's a lot more that goes into migraines and what it is, but a lot of times you're looking at like base level dehydration. We count a lot of the athletes that I've talked to and spoken with, at least initially, a lot of times count any fluid as hydration, and that's not really the right way of looking at it, because again, water has such an imperative design in our body. Like if you're not getting like water in its probably simplest element, like if you're drinking coffee, which has some, dehydrating, components to it, even though there is a good bit of water, I would say it's probably almost net zero. I wouldn't count it towards your hydration, almost to the detriment of. But when we talk about like sparkling waters or just some of these other, options that are out there, I know it kind of, I wince when I see people who talk about Powerades and Gatorades and some of these other stuff. I mean, knowing that full right Powerade is owned by Coke and Gatorade is owned by Pepsi or vice versa, it's like a lot of times it's soda, and it's soda just without carbonation. And so finding a way to kind of start there, we talked about initially, and I think this goes back to kind of like best practices, having a more prescriptive amount of water to drink on a daily basis. Like a better gauge for most people is half your body weight in ounces, until you fall on the top end or the bottom end of that spectrum, right? Typically, if you have you look at BMI in the same regard, like, for people who are 5'5" to 5'10", who are, 165 to, 195 pounds for gentlemen, probably like 140 kind of to 160 pounds for females, it's like perfect. Like that prescription just absolutely puts you right in the smack dab of where you should be. But if you're under that or over that substantially, all of a sudden it's like, I can't drink 2 gallons of water, dude. Like no matter how hard I try, or I can't drink, I can't only drink 8 ounces of water and be satiated there. And so I think it always comes back down to like, that's a starting point, right? That's half your body weight in ounces is a good general starting point. And it is up to you to start dialing that in to determine, is this the best option for me? I know most people go through these kind of waves where it's like, yeah, I forgot to drink a lot. I only drank coffee yesterday, and then I had a sparkling water. So today I'm extremely dehydrated. So I feel like all of the water intake that I'm drinking, my body needs it and it's filling up. And then I'm going to the bathroom nonstop. Well, it's like anything else. Like if you get one really bad night of, or one really good night of sleep that doesn't offset a week's worth of shitty sleep, if anything, it's the first step of that evolution of getting back into baseline. And so I think an easy kind of prescription is to start drinking water is infinitely better than not, even if it is so quote unquote, toilet water, like we've been talking about. But like getting enough hydration in is step one. If the water doesn't taste interesting to you, again, it's different if the quality of the water is unappealing, right? The water tastes bad. And I think we've all had the difference between like good water and bad water. If you think about like hose water versus like Evian, like there should be a clear difference if I'm spending that type of money. But like if the water quality doesn't taste good, then yeah, now I'm looking for an option. We ourselves are on a septic system that connects into a well, and we've had a bunch of, because of some of the drought this summer, some low pressure, some boil notices that have come up, which has eliminated some of the options for us in terms of some of the whole house systems. And so we've been having to kind of buy in, a substantial amount of water on a regular basis. But, I've been talking with Megan, we do have a filter on the fridge water that we use. And it's like, there's a significant difference in the taste if we get it through the fridge, even if it's a fresh filter, even if, we're keeping up with everything versus getting it bottled. So it's like, this is becoming very present for us to want to be able to take something on. But like I was saying, starting, if I was going to do it for a week, getting to my number, and then really just like taking a 10,000 foot view and saying like, how do I feel? Like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom every 10 minutes. Well, are you drinking all of that water in one sitting at the beginning of the day, or are you spreading that out throughout the day? I know personally, right, just because, just sheer size and weight that I am, to get a gallon of water in, if I drink it all at the same time, then yeah, I'm probably going to go ahead and run through it or evacuate the majority of that pretty quick, as opposed to I try to take, I break it into 4 kind of 32-ounce cups that I try to take on around meals, and then 1 around training. So it's very easy for me to kind of see how I feel, but I'm drinking one big 32-ounce cup of water. And I know personally that like that doesn't impact my bathroom schedule, or it doesn't make me feel like anything changes. And then I know that if I'm not consistent with that, that's where I'll start to, whether it's, I'll notice I'm a little bit hungrier faster, or maybe I'll notice that like I have a little bit less cognitive attention, or that maybe I have a little bit more brain fog, or a little bit more of like a headache. Then typically that's the first place that I kind of like look at picking back up, or doing a little bit more attention to kind of get myself back on track. And so that would be my kind of, like starting point for action item for people, is like commit to taking a week and just making sure, paying attention to drinking half your body weight in ounces. And then from there, start to look at how you consume that, right? If you did a bad job and you're trying to squeeze it in right before bed, like, of course, you're going to wake up overnight to have to run to the bathroom. So shut it down around 7. If you did a bad job, just do a better job tomorrow, and then go from there. Like, if you don't notice, especially for those who are pretty inconsistent with their water consumption, like if you didn't notice that, like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I can perform a little bit easier in the gym, or oh my gosh, I feel like, I'm functioning a little bit better, or I don't need as much coffee, or even if coffee feels like it works a little bit better, a lot of times it's, you're just not giving your body enough resources for it to like go through a lot of the cleaning up detox processes that it needs to anyways. And so I would, that would probably be my big stand on kind of, especially kind of taking any nuggets away from today's combo.
Yeah, let's make one thing clear, ladies and gents. If you're drinking Powerade and Gatorade, just stop. Okay, these companies are owned by big soda corporations, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that you don't want to put into your body versus a very small amount of the things of why you're probably drinking those beverages. So we drink Gatorades and Powerades for electrolytes, but they're loaded with sugar, artificial ingredients, artificial coloring, all this stuff. It's why we carry Element. Element's a much better bang for your buck. It's going to give you more of the things that you want it for and less of the cruddy stuff. So let's cut that habit out the same way that we would recommend not drinking liquid death, which is soda pop. Quickly, I want to go into, before we wrap on up, I was just exploring some basic reverse osmosis filtration systems on Amazon. Spent a couple $100, and replacing the filters once a year, it's only going to cost you about maybe 50 to $100. But this is a fantastic investment, guys. When you look at the things that you consistently expose yourself to, air, water, food, movement, you want to make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck. And Arian and I both strongly believe that investing in highest quality water that you can, the water that you put onto your body, that you cook with, stuff like that, it's a completely different topic for a different day. The reverse osmosis system, a couple $100 will go a long, long way. You factor that over the course of like a year, 12 months. I mean, the payments are pennies on the dollar. Another thing that you guys need to think about as far as half your body weight in fluid ounces is also your sweat rate. We live in a very humid climate. So our general rule of thumb is like, okay, for every vigorous hour of training or sweating or yard work or, laborious event that you're doing, replenish with about I would recommend 16 to 24 ounces worth of water. And if you're really, if you got a high sweat rate, you sweat a lot, make that 24 to 32 ounces. So take your half your body weight in fluid ounces as your foundation. If you're training really, really hard that day, that might be an additional 16 to 32 that you're putting back in, because we expend and we dispel a ton of water when we sweat. But not just that, our mineral and electrolyte profile. That's why it's important that we're retaining, not just hydrating. So Arian made a lot of really good points on takeaways from this conversation as far as, hey, how do I take some actionables away from, this is really great stuff, guys. I want to take all the information and I want to start today. How can I be better around my hydration habits? Three things that come to mind that I talk to our members about. Number one is getting a bottle of water that you really enjoy carrying and having around. If you're just drinking out of those little plastic 16-ounce bottles, the ones that you throw away after you finish them, there's a different feeling of drinking from that than maybe like, a glass insulated, I don't know if you guys can see this, like a glass insulated purple 32-ounce flask, right? If you have something cool that has a handle on it, and it has a cool straw and whatnot, you're going to take more pride in that tool that you have. And when you think about it as a tool, right? Plus, you want to keep that around. You want to carry it around. And if you carry it around yourself more often, you're going to see it more often. If you see it more often, it's going to give you that thought of, let's drink, let's hydrate. The second thought is make this thing big, okay? This cup right here, this is a coffee cup, okay? This is about 16 ounces. This isn't something that I would carry around if my focus is hydrating and getting to 150 ounces of fluid water. I'm probably going to want to bring something that's 32 ounces, 42 ounces, or at little like 25 ounces, something to where all you have to do is drink. Yeah, Arian's got one right there. All I got to do is drink one of those, or maybe all I got to do is drink two of those, right? That's a lot better to wrap your head around than like, oh my God, I got to drink 10, 16 ounce little crappy plastic water bottles, not to mention all of the plastics that are seeping into that water too. Again, another conversation for another day. But number one, get something that you like carrying around that you don't mind putting water in. Number two, make it big. Make it to where I only have to drink one or two of these versus 10 of these. And then the last thing is make your water enjoyable. Like Arian was saying, like if you hate the taste of regular water, then throw an element packet in there. And there's nothing better. My perfect ratio for an element pack, one whole pack of an element, is like 64 ounces of water. So take one element pack, split it in half, throw it in a 32-ounce beaker or whatever, drink it, and then throw the rest of it in your next one, and all of a sudden you're 3/4 of the way to your half fluid ounce of drinking. But you look forward to drinking because you enjoy the taste of that water. Another thing to think about too is like soaking fruits in water, or even throwing a little bit of lemon or sea salt in water, right? You're basically leveling up the taste of the water. I would really strongly recommend staying away from a lot of those like artificial colored and flavored like crystal lights, or even like, I don't know what those squeezing bottle is. Like you guys don't want to mess with that stuff. Go with trusted brands that we suggest, but also be mindful of ingredient lists as well. So Aaron, I'll let you chat here in a sec. But number one reminder is get a bottle that you love, that looks great, that you don't mind carrying around. Make it big as ever so that you have to drink less of them rather than more. And then the third one is make your water palatable. Throw an element packet in it. Throw some soak some fruit in it. Put some lemon and some sea salt in there. That's going to make that behavior of getting to half your body weight of fluid ounces of water a lot easier to do. Aaron, what do you got for us?
So in regards to the soaking of the fruit, so I've tried that. I've had a bunch of people. It usually gets funky, and there's only a certain amount of time that you can keep it in there because the fruit runs out or it gets soft. Heat plus water plus oxygen is literally a breeding ground for mold too. So you think about like the glucose and everything in there. And so I've had a lot of success with people who hate the taste of water and don't want anything else. Is cold soaking tea, like a tea bag. So something that is designed to be in water. You can get fruit. I highly recommend getting non-caffeinated. I love chai. So I have a decaf, spiced chai that I'll soak in water. But again, just to give it a little bit more like of an enjoyment factor, or if I like that floral, or if I want that mint taste, but I don't want to mess with cleanup, or I want to refill it multiple times, that has become like a huge go-to that I've worked with a lot of people who struggle with the taste of just regular water.
Yeah, great point. Just ways to level up your water, guys, to enhance the palatability, which will enhance that behavior of desirability, wanting to drink more. And then the last point we want to make is hydrating your body, getting water to a body that's made up 75% of it, getting water to your tissues. You guys are going to be very, very surprised how a lot of the things that you currently experience that are less than desirable is completely related to whether you're hydrating or not hydrating. A lot of great stuff. Coach Arian, always appreciate your time and energy. We're going to wrap this bad boy up. We're a little over, but our next looking at the calendar. Next monthly support call as we move into spooky season will be October 27th, 3:30 p.m. As always, if you guys have any questions, any topics of decision, anything revolving around health, wellness, fitness, behavioral uptake, right? Anything at all. We are a wealth of information and would love to chat deeper within that topic. And if we don't know the answer, you better damn well believe we're going to dig in our appropriate resources and find the answer. So other than that, you guys make it a great Thursday. Aaron, Coach Aaron, thank you for your time. And we will catch